till just last week. We can't legally, morally, or ethically rewrite the facts just because the manager was caught paying an employee in violation of the law. Finally, the third agreement is the one in which Bring It, Inc., Mr. Radis's company, is going to pay the village back for the payments that it has received. Of course, they're going to pay it back with village money because we are going to personally pay Mr. Radis retroactively back to September. The village's own conflict of interest ordinance, which states that the whole arrangement is voidable because it was entered into in violation of the law. This whole scheme is part of a massive cover-up, and I can't support it.
Madam Mayor,
Trustee Carberry.
Paul, is everything that we're doing right now, right?
That's correct. That's our opinion. And Mr. Duffy's here from my partner to talk about it. We've crafted this agreement. We think it's consistent and compliant with the
Okay.
law.
But here, forget about the lawyers and all that. I'm just gonna make a comment on this, and, you know, surely we didn't enter into this, Bob, I mean, to jam us up and make us look stupid politically, which it made, you know. It may make us look a little foolish, right? But I don't think I didn't benefit from it. I don't know Steve Radis, and I've never known him politically or any other way. But what I do know, since taking this position, I've probably had at least 20 different times from residents, as you know, you deal with the same request, where Steve's been following up and doing a good job with the residents and the property management. Now you talk about economic development. You know, that's a broad term, right? But right now, we have a guy who's from Oak Lawn, has vested interest here. We don't have to, he doesn't have to be he's not getting benefits or insurance, which, to be quite frank, I don't know why, you know, if we're gonna make a commitment. But he's met with several brokers that I know, retail brokers. Every one of them has given him high praise, you know, and he's been following up on that development, which is paramount right now. You know the amount of dollars we have down there at 111th Street. Someone has to manage that. And I think a guy from Oak Lawn who's been involved, he's been on the capital, you know, the capital planning and development boards, and which is a sacrifice and a commitment, you know. He obviously loves Oak Lawn. So I was back and forth on this, and to be frank, because I'm not happy with how it was handled. And I'm not happy about, and I'll talk about that later, when I find out about, you know, the things. And I don't think it's being hidden from me or there was anything done illegally or purposefully, but we need to communicate better as a board, and everybody needs to know what's going on and when. But I don't think anything was done in this hit list. I don't know, maybe, I don't know what you're promoting on that. I don't get it. I really don't. We had a lot of things that we have to get done here in the village, and you know that, everybody knows that, and there's no hit list business. I don't have anything to do with Radis, and, other than thinking he could do a good job for us. And we need someone now, and if he doesn't, the village manager's got to do his job. The village manager's right now saying he could do the job. And we need somebody there to, we have a need there, a specific need. And he's probably doing that full-time if it was me, but that's all I have to say on it. So I am going to support it, and I am going to, and just make sure, and the lawyers, if there's something that you guys want to shed light on it to answer any of Bob's questions about anything illegal being done here, I'm surely there, I know there was no intent of that, but if there's a mishap or there's risk here, we have to mitigate risk. Let's get it out right now.
Would you care to come up to the podium, sir?
Can I also?
Sure. Let me have him introduce himself, and I think, Mike, you were still talking. You were asking him questions, correct?
No, I'm not. You know,
okay.
it's declarative in nature. I just want you to, you heard what was said by
I did.
trustee
Would you
Strite,
introduce
right?
yourself, please,
Sure.
sir?
Daniel P. Duffy from Peterson, Johnson, and Murray.
So what I want to know is, does the village have risk? And was there any intent to do anything illegal?
Not in my judgment. And, this contention that something unlawful was done in the past stretches things beyond the imagination as far as my legal analysis goes. This law that's being cited as having been transgressed doesn't have anything to do with circumstances like existed here. It's meant to govern someone's self-dealing within municipal government. That's not the case in this circumstance at all. The way that the agreements have been designed is to button everything up and make everything go forward legally to make to give the village the lowest risk possible. There's a Supreme Court case called Bogan versus Scott Harris that approves legislative action with regard to budgetary matters with regard to staffing. And this is designed to bring it within the confines of Bogan versus Scott Harris and give us the greatest amount of protection going forward as the village to protect against any litigation that's brought by someone who would want to litigate this.
Thank you. Bob, you have any questions for the?
I would.
Carol actually had a question first, and
sorry, Mayor,
and
by the
I'm
way.
gonna just let Carol take the floor.
Honestly, I'm just frustrated with it. I think you guys blew it. And I think that you made this board look terrible. I think poor Steve, I think he was blindsided because you didn't look ahead of, okay, this is coming down the pipeline. This is what we're doing. Are we doing what's best for Steve? And most importantly, are we doing what's best for the village? And I think that's your job as our village attorneys. We don't have to ask you those questions. You know what's on the agenda. You know what's in our budget. And it is your job to look at that and make sure that we are protected. I mean,
Larry, is
that's just how
Mike,
I feel,
actually.
because nobody else would, this would not have happened. And Steve's in the middle of the whole thing as well.
Trustee Carberry.
Larry said, I don't know if the lawyers were, I'm not looking to point fingers at why we had to screw up, we fumbled, but it's not their fault, right?
No, I don't believe it's a question of placing blame. Again, I'm going to be very open as your manager. There was public discourse, and I can go back very clear in your tills. I led the board from the reorganization in August. Then the ethics conflict of interest was passed in September after the decision was, let's use the talents of an existing part-time employee. I advertised internally through our HR department, and we posted, and 4 Oak Lawn employees responded. 4 wonderful people. I interviewed all 4, and I selected and told the board who I felt was best equipped internally on a part-time basis and to do it.
All right, Matt, but what I'm saying is, Carol seems to think that and I don't know.
The attorney, that's my question. The
And I
attorney
don't
should have
know.
looked at it at that
And I don't know if they
point.
knew. I don't think the
Right.
attorneys knew
Okay.
that there was a, Madam Mayor, I'm sorry if it's more of a discussion here, but
That's okay.
But I think Carol's bringing up a good point, but what I'm saying is, Carol, I don't know, and this is all I want, I don't think they knew that he was working as a part-time employee and a contractor, and I don't think, obviously, we wouldn't have done it if, we thought there was something wrong with it, but I don't think the law firm knew. Is that accurate?
That's correct.
Paul?
I don't know all the employees up here. When we discovered it is when we were asked to draft the contract.
And
Then-
again, trustees and trustee Quinlan, if you want to blame anybody, blame me.
Yeah, and I'm not
Don't
looking
blame
to
the
do
We
that.
did talk about it at the board table. We absolutely, it was brought up at this board table, where I don't know if it was you sitting here or I don't know which one attorney was sitting here, but It was most certainly.
I'd like to respond to what Bob said. I think it's important, because I understand where Bob was coming. Job sharing, the concept of job sharing, I was doing that as a manager in the 1980s. Doing that, again, in a recession of 1983, when that organization I represented was downsizing, privatizing, staffing, and addressing a terrible, terrible recession and 20% interest rates. And we were taking existing part-time employees and figuring out a way we could have them do tasks that would either
Was that in the
have...
30s, Larry?
And in the case of Steve, as you all know, he did an outstanding job as a volunteer, as planning commission member and as a chairman, and which really has a lot of interface with developers and site plans, so he's very familiar. And then he has property maintenance inspection work. I thought, quite frankly, as a manager, I saw some talents that he had. And by the way, of the other applicants, there was another one who had inspection work, delightful young lady, with a lot of great experience, and hopefully in the future, we can develop something further for her in the organization. Very impressive. We had a full-time employee, and he wasn't prepared to give up his full-time employment, but also loves this community. They were all interested in furthering Oak Lawn. So that's the history. I raised my hand. If there was any confusion or the difficulty, it is a little bit creative. Not every municipality does it, but we were in a budget structural deficit presentation by our treasurer going into August, and we were looking to make changes in many areas, and we still have more work to go. But that's really all. There's nothing, I'd say, secretive or that was ever covert. It was very overt in public meetings to try to make this happen.
Madam Mayor?
Trustee Oliniechek.
Yeah, I just want to comment to we always hear this hit list, and so I do have a copy of the hit list, and you can pick and choose what you want out of it, but it's very compelling that when you get a letter that starts out that this is just, it's disinformation opinions, mine, that I want to share with you based on my collective 8 years of experience serving as a trustee, in which Trustee Phelan did a great job as a trustee. He puts, again, these are my opinions and suggestions, only that I'm providing in the hope that it might help you formulate your own opinions. Help you formulate your own opinions. But every time there's a move that's made that's counter to what a certain person here wants, it turns into a political statement. One of the things that is very foreboding is in the last sentence. It goes, and always remember, you're only 2 degrees or less removed from people whose sole purpose is to undermine you in your efforts to deliver what the Oak Lawn residents said overwhelmingly that they want. Be very, very cautious. Those are good words of advice. But going into the alleged hit list, which is just advice, it says, the village manager, we need stability there. Any and all problems, mistakes, screw-ups will be the fault of the Oak Lawn first team going into 2015 elections because we're elected by the vast majority of the residents in the village of Oak Lawn. Larry Deachin has done an incredible job under extremely distressful and screwed up circumstances. It'll be exciting to see how effective he can be with a mayor and board that supports him instead of undermines him. What a very true statement. But going into how we in Oak Lawn are a very small community. We all know each other. We see each other out. We see each other out in the streets, at the grocery store, shopping, events, at restaurants. But being that Oak Lawn is a small community, and when people want to put politics in everything they do, I just look at, you are the owner of Illinois Energy Aggregation, correct?
I am.
Did you use Mr. Radis
Okay.
as a consultant? Yes or no?
First of all,
It's yes or no.
Alex,
I recommended Steve Radis for the Planning and Development Board position. I'm glad you're finally acknowledging that the hit list is a document that you're very familiar with.
It's a recommendation. It's not
It was-
a
and
hit
you followed
list.
every single,
Trustee
down to the
Straight,
point.
let
you
Alex
followed it.
finish.
Well,
his
now
thought,
he's
then
going to
I'll give
say
you
that
the
we
floor.
followed it down to every single point, which is absolutely false and not true. Anybody that wants to see it, take a look at the recommendations that were made. They were recommendations. My only point to you, Mr. Straight, is everything is about politics to you. You have gone so low and so far as to put your own blog, which you're so ashamed of that you don't even put your name on it. That you don't even put your name on any of the articles that are written on it. And you are an advertiser on it, you and your fellow business partner, a lawyer, Dennis Brennan. I'm just very concerned with what you're trying to do for the village of Oak Lawn.
Please call the vote, Jane.
How about,
Trustee
you know
Quinlan?
what, but, you know what, I was asked if I have any
Please call the
questions for
vote.
the attorney. Well,
Trustee
I think
Quinlan?
I do have some pretty important questions. I think that I would like the answer.
We're acknowledged.
If the questions, let them ask the
To
questions.
ask the attorney a question.
Do I have a second?
Second to call the vote.
I'll second the vote.
Okay, please take the roll. Or
Trustee
any-
Quinlan?
Abstain.
Trustee Oliniechek?
Yes.
Trustee Desmond?
Yes.
Trustee Carberry?
Yes.
Trustee Vorder?
Yes.
Trustee Straight?
No.
Motion passes 4-1-0.
Thank you, Mayor Board. Item C is appointment of Kevin Cunningham as village prosecutor. You have his resignation from the village for the functions of adjudicator and counsel to the Police and Fire Commission. Once again, I accept responsibility. I made that recommendation to consolidate for a fixed fee of $60,000 back in July, early August. The board accepted that recommendation. And for reasons that are explained in his resignation, he has decided that he can only continue in the capacity as village prosecutor. I don't appoint or make a decision on the adjudicator, that's the village president. In order to consolidate the functions last July and August, I asked for the support of the mayor and the board, and thank you for giving that support. With this change, I did approach the recommendation that the mayor had, and I asked Mr. Cunningham and the gentleman being appointed for the position as adjudicator and special counsel if they would cap the fees, no change, $60,000 fixed fee. And Mr. Olson of Olson Stirk graciously said, I will bill the village at $185 an hour, but I will cap the fee, and my split will be less than Kevin, and it comes to a maximum of $5. So if there is a month where adjudication is not that busy, we'll only be billed at $185 an hour, and the invoice he will submit will be less than his monthly stipend. Total stipend will still remain not to exceed $5,000 per month, $60,000 a year. That's a savings from $72,000, same numbers we discussed when Trustee Vorder asked for that information back in July and August. No change in the budget number. Thank you.
Okay, may I have a motion, please, on item 10C? This is the appointment of Kevin Cunningham as village prosecutor.
Motion approved.
Properly moved by trustee Oliniechek, seconded by trustee Vorder. Any discussion on this item?
Yes,
Yeah.
Mayor.
Trustee Desmond.
Yeah, I'd just like to clarify this again. When this came up before the board, the previous time, was it wrong then? And is it right now? Or-
Outstanding question. I'm going to give you an answer as a manager, not a lawyer, and I'll yield to the attorney. I'm totally befuddled by this. My job is to manage a village, and I have had situations in the past throughout the United States where these functions have all been handled and consolidated by an attorney. I see absolutely no conflict in what was recommended to you, but I'm not an attorney. So apparently there was a guideline, not a law, again, a guideline prepared internally by the Bar Association of the State of Illinois and by a committee that looks at ethics and looks at guidelines. And an opinion had been issued of which I certainly would not have been aware of as a manager because I don't belong to the Illinois Bar Association. I belong to the International City Management Association. And I called the attorney for the city of Elmhurst, very fine firm, like we use an outside firm. Elmhurst uses a firm based in Rosemont, and I spoke to the attorney at hand. They were protesting the guideline. I read a copy, or I was forwarded a copy of their protest, which I thought was outstanding and right to the mark. So it's a guideline, it's not a law, but there was so much intense pressure, and I don't want to use the word political, whatever, but Mr. Cunningham is a gentleman with family, young children, and a career. He's an attorney who I think has been a very effective attorney. That's what the police, and that's what Jeannie Galzin, who runs our property maintenance, tells us, that he was doing an outstanding job serving us as adjudicator, counsel to Police and Fire Commission, and prosecutor for less than what we were doing it before. Sound like a pretty good deal to me. Everyone he interfaces with likes it. He's doing a good job. But you read his resignation. He said, Larry, he said, I cannot jeopardize my career, although it's a guideline and I disagree with my own professional association. I feel incumbent to resign at this time, and I respect him for that. I fought it for the longest time, asking him to work with his bar association, talk some sense into the bar association. But again, I'm a manager. I don't want to be disrespectful of the legal profession. I have the utmost respect for the legal profession. But you know what? I can disagree. I disagree with arbitrators who are lawyers. I disagree with judges at times, but we respect their opinion, and then you act accordingly. But that's the fact.
Right,
Thank
and I would just add that there was nothing, the conflict, there was nothing done wrong at the board. The conflict was all Mr. Cunningham's. We issued an opinion, and Mr. Duffy's here to talk about that we circulated to the board. Certainly, the only reason that we're here tonight is because Mr. Cunningham decided to resign, not anything that we did.
And I might add that other
As a board.
communities for years, for decades, have been handling these functions through one law firm or one attorney. To me, conflicts occur on individual cases, and I can think of a conflict, and it's incumbent upon that specific attorney, based on his code of ethics and his body of knowledge, to declare a conflict when that occurs. Now, that's a manager speaking. Sorry, Mr. Duffy.
I'm going to turn the floor over to you, Mr. Duffy.
Absolutely, and I think, again, Daniel P. Duffy for the record. It's important to distinguish between the Illinois State Bar Association, which is it's a bar association, a voluntary group, and the Attorney Registration and Disciplinary Commission, which is the Supreme Court's commission that sets the actual rules of professional conduct that govern attorney conduct. The ISBA's advisory opinion is not binding in any way, shape, or form. It's an opinion by a committee of the State Bar Association, and quite frankly, it's flat out wrong. They've misanalyzed the rules that apply to the situation. They've overlooked the actual rules that apply to the situation. Prosecutors are governed by a specific rule, 3.8. Judges and arbitrators and adjudicators are governed by a different section of the code. It's Rule 63C. Under the analysis that should have been done, under the analysis that the ISBA did, every time a federal judge heard a case involving the United States government would be the same conflict, and I use that term in quotes, it would be the same conflict for that federal judge that they've pointed out that as to the adjudicator in this case. It's not a conflict. And I say that as someone who served on the ARDC Review Board for 9 years. There has never been a case in Illinois history finding this to be a conflict. The cases cited in the opinion were from the 1954 was one case, and 1951 was another case, and no courts have read them the same way this ISBA committee read them. All that said, Mr. Cunningham has to do what is best for him. The village, from the village's perspective, there was absolutely no problem with his continuing. The suggestion would be that he simply read into the record that he does in fact serve as both adjudicator and prosecutor in the situation where anybody was coming up for adjudication. And that, in my opinion, would have solved, would have resolved any risk on the village's part. Mr. Cunningham has, in an overabundance of caution, chosen to step down, which leads us here today.
Mayor, and just one follow-up question.
Yes, follow up, trustee Desmond, and then we'll turn the floor over to
What other
trustees.
towns has this type of arrangement
My
that
understanding.
we have?